If you have ever felt disgusted by a partner you had, why was that? Story 1. I had a miscarriage, and he left me alone and in pain to play video games. I had emergency surgery, and he called me the next morning to complain that he was tired because he'd stayed up for me, and to ask how much this was going to cost and how I was going to pay for it. We were married and shared expenses and a bank ACCT, but he wanted it to be paid for solely by me. A year later, he started cheating on me. I found out and I asked him why. His answer, with tears and snot running down his face, was, "She wants to have kids with me, and you've been saying you need time. Biggest you I've ever laughed." Story 2. We only dated very briefly and stayed very close friends afterwards, until his girlfriend after me called me up and told me what she found on his computer. He filmed almost every sexual encounter non-consensually and posted them online. He filmed women through their bathroom windows. He filmed women he was following around stores. When she reported him to the police, they already knew his name. I have younger sisters who liked him a lot. Telling them was the hardest part. Their first real experience with a trusted adult male being a terrible person. There's an extremely strong possibility he posted me online, but I'll probably never know for sure. In positive news, after almost 2 years of investigation, he was arrested 2 weeks ago. Christmas came early. I was dancing around my kitchen when I found out. Story 3. Her mom accidentally bought too much and wanted to drop off some groceries, just in case she needed anything. This woman came to her house with easily $200 to $300 worth of food, toiletries, drinks, soaps, crap. There was even 2 bags of name-brand beef jerky in there. It was obvious to me her mom didn't accidentally buy all this stuff. She did it because she loved her daughter and wanted to make sure she was taken care of and had nice things. My ex then proceeded to yell and very rudely thanked her mom before making snide remarks about how she didn't like this brand or flavor. Jordan, if you're reading this, you're an ugly, selfish person and your mom deserves better. I'm only sorry I didn't say something and interject. Story 4. I realized that she was not a moral and honest person, and that she was slowly pulling me down with her. It didn't start being really evident until after we moved in together, but it was stuff like, I just never, ever casually shoplift an item because the line is long and I can't be bothered to wait. I would never keep an item a friend had lent me when I discovered they couldn't remember who they had lent it to, knowing that they weren't now expecting it back. I'm not comfortable lying for personal gain. Trying to claim money I know I'm not entitled to. Lying about an item not having been delivered so that I get a refund. Keeping all the cash and postage stamps in a wallet found in the street, and planning to just throw the rest away. None of it was murder or caused serious harm to anyone, but over time, it just all gave me the big ick. And it was such a slow creep of behavior that it kind of normalized it in our household, and I realized I hated that. It just wasn't me. I couldn't respect someone who was basically an opportunistic petty thief, even though she could be very generous and kind in other ways. Story 5. He wouldn't get a job, wouldn't help around the house, wouldn't leave the house. We were drowning in debt, and I was barely making sure we at least had a roof over our heads. No matter how much I begged, screamed, cried, he just would nod his head, tell me he understood and would help, and then nothing would change. He sat there for 14+ hours a day, playing video games on my computer. He would wear the same sweatpants for weeks on end. He would belittle and insult me every chance he got. Why didn't I kick him out? Because I'm too nice and he was ex-military and I'm a small petite woman. How did he eventually get out of my life? We got drunk on and had an argument. It's hazy, but he took my phone from me, and when I tried to get it back, he shoved me down my stairs, put his hands around my neck, screamed in my face. I got outside and he pushed me down again, and this time held me down and was trying to calm me down because now the neighbors would be able to see, but it was midnight. Got him off me and ran down the street. My friends found me sobbing on the sidewalk a block away from my house. A few hours later, I had an order of protection and he was being arrested and removed from the house. I haven't seen him since. Edit, wanted to add that no, he wasn't always this way. He started out very sweet and loving, saying all the right things, love bombing sucks, and he was just a normal low-level soldier who never saw combat and did crap work around the base. He was kicked out because he smoked weed and was tested. Later, he tried to blame me for the reason he was smoking. I didn't know I could control this man from over miles away. Also, thank you for all the support. If anyone ever lays their hands on you, please leave. Even if it's not right away, make those plans. Story 6. Many years ago, my boyfriend at the time took me on a little weekend getaway in the big city to try and save our relationship that was hanging by a thread after I caught him emotionally cheating with his ex and several female friends. I'm sure it was physical too, but since we didn't live together, he had plenty of time to commit misdeeds and get rid of any evidence before the next time I came over, so I never had any proof. He wanted to go to this fancy steakhouse right when we got there, where he proceeded to gorge himself on a steak that wouldn't have looked out of place in an eating contest. Bloating and indigestion soon set in, and he no longer felt up to doing any of the things we'd planned for the rest of the day, which annoyed me, but whatever. I was okay with just hanging out at the hotel and watching movies, which is what we did until the 28 ounces of beef he had horked down finally worked its way through him. He was running to the bathroom every hour for the whole evening, stinking out the entire hotel room each time. I guess he was only cursorily wiping too, because every time he sat back down I could smell his ass through his pants. I was already halfway out the door due to the cheating to begin with, but that was my WTF am I doing here moment. What exactly is it that I love about this guy? Do I really not think I deserve any better than a stank-ass man who can't stay out of his ex's DMs? I'm better than this crap. Story 7. She wanted sexy time, so she took her tampon out. But she said, "Go easy though, I'm pretty sore down there." I start going at it and I'm like, are you good? That doesn't feel right? Because it felt like I hit bottom way earlier than usual. She was like, "No, stop. I need you to do something." In a panic, she explained that, however it happened, she had 2 tampons in and needed me to fish the old one out. Now, I was not disgusted by her, but I was disgusted by the smell of the old tampon. It had been in there for 3 days. I guess she got stoned or drunk, I forget the details. She tried to take a tampon out, couldn't find the string, and figured she must have taken it out earlier in the day and put a new one in, not noticing what she'd done, and then continued changing them daily with growing discomfort. It also, suctioned to the cervix, so it wasn't easy to pull out at all. It felt like I was ripping her guts out and looked like it too. She bled heavily for a few minutes, and we nearly went to the hospital. Thankfully, it stopped. Very, very bad smell. Story 8. After a year and a half of dating, he reveals that he believes women posting sexily posed pictures of themselves online have no right to be upset if strangers come up and assault them. I was baffled. This man had asked me if he could kiss me the first time he kissed me. He had always been incredibly respectful to me, so I asked if I posted a posed bikini picture on Instagram and some random man saw it, then groped me in front of him, if he'd think that was okay. And he said yes. In hindsight, I realized he must only have respected me because I behaved in a way that he deemed worthy of respect. It horrified me to know he believed he'd be justified in assaulting other women if they behaved differently. I also found him saving sexily posed pictures of women we both knew as acquaintances on his phone. I'm not one for policing what people look at in general, and I wouldn't have cared if he was saving random porn or Instagram, model photos or whatever, but our coworker? Like someone you actually talk to in person? You're going to save her photos off her Facebook? That's creepy to me. Story 9. My current BF actually, though I love him very much. We were eating with a large group of people at a nice restaurant and he burped really loudly. It was so loud and disgusting that not only did our entire table stop conversation, but people at other tables turned to look. Like if you've ever burped before or after puking, that's it. Even his buddies looked like, dude, WTF. It sounds kind of silly, but I felt really grossed out and kind of embarrassed, honestly. I think he could tell and asked me afterwards. We had a grown conversation about it, and he apologized and said he regretted doing it almost immediately after once he noticed everyone's reactions. He's never done it again, and gives himself crap for it once in a while. I was glad we agreed because it seriously repulsed me. Burping isn't that gross and not something that bothers me normally, but that was just a lot. Story 10. I was dating this loser in my early mid-20s. He let his room get bad. I understand depression nests, but this was past that. He had a fish tank that always stunk, and I was just cleaning up trash, which he got pissy about because I was going through his things, after I caught him going through my drawers at my house and reading my writing journal a few weeks prior. Anyways, The room just smelled awful, and I grabbed a piece of trash, and underneath was a dead, rotting fish. I almost threw up at the smell and I lost my crap. He was notoriously very messy, so it's not like this nest was a one-time thing. I jumped up and walked out of the room and told him if he did not clean up, then I was going home. He did start cleaning more after that, and a year later, we moved into a rental home where his lack of hygiene and messiness exploded. So many bottles of Jaeger in the basement and Monster. I don't know why I didn't walk away sooner. Story 11. I dated a 48-year-old man, and anytime I think about him, I am disgusted. Witnessing blatant lies as he attempted to casually justify them. Making fun of a child for getting sick and throwing up at an event. Getting his friends to agree with him. Saying minimum wage, maximum loser. And being proud of himself for saying it. Total lack of empathy. Him being upset at anyone for just dyeing their hair an unnatural color. Just ridiculous, critical, and bullying behavior. He also hit his steering wheel when he got mad at me for crying when he said something that hurt my feelings and made it my fault all of a sudden. It was just awful, and he is a disgusting human being. I can't believe I stayed with him for a year. Not to mention, he honestly mentions still being in love with his friend who is married with kids. They both supposedly still love each other, and being married twice. And the second one, he still says we'll see each other in our dreams before bed. He spent hours arguing with me and belittling me about the dumbest crap in the world that would have been easier to just answer simply, but instead, he became condescending and treated me like I had no common sense. Oh, and he wanted to kill his parents but didn't because he knew he would end up in prison. You are who you hang around, right? Hi, S. Childhood best friend is in prison for killing his own girlfriend. Never again will I allow myself to be treated like that. Second class, second best, and like a trophy that he could tarnish and expect to shine and show off to his friends. Absolutely appalling and despicable human being. He was the worst man I had ever dated in my life. What won me over in the beginning, because I did not like him for 2 years? Humor, charm, kindness initially, and always being eager to talk to me once I was single. He was a leech, and he grew on me and sucked the lifeblood out of me at the time. Always look for the red flags like controlling behavior. It was there all along. He also isolated me away from everyone and into his friend group only. I was terrified for my life when I decided to say yes to move in together. I am so glad I did not do it. Edited to add, all caps for 48, is because I couldn't believe how emotionally immature he was for his age. Story 12. Honestly, my BF right now. His uncle bio auntie's husband has just died after a year-long mystery illness that ravaged him. The dude went from being completely compos mentis to unable to walk or talk, shaking, fitting, and not having any memory at all in a matter of months. Then days after Christmas just collapsed and started dying out of the blue. He's not even sent his auntie a text, bearing in mind this is his uncle he's known ever since he was born. My BF is 34. I admit he wasn't the closest to him personally, but if it was me, I'd have sent my auntie a text at the very least to send condolences. His grandma has also just died in September, so his family is really going through it. Dude's just really cold at times. Makes me wonder why I'm with him sometimes, to be honest. Or the time I had to literally beg at his feet on my knees for him to drive me 2.5 hours so I could get to see my family dog before he got put down. It was during COVID, so he refused to drive me but told me to get the train instead, which I would have been too late to see him if I had, as my dad had only let me know that morning via a text. My BF argued with me for so long, I think about an hour, that I only got to see my dog for minutes before he had to go to the vets. I have struggled to forgive him for this, even though I guess he did take me in the end, so I should be grateful he did that at all. Story 13. The moment I realized that my ex not only did not love me, but never really had, I was more repulsed by her than I've ever been by a person. It was a bizarre feeling, and I remember the exact moment. I was doing inventory check-in for a big project at work, and the thought felt like it had physical force when it hit me, and it was like a light switch. I loved her one moment, and the next, that concept was unfathomable to me. A long series of things led up to that, but the straw that broke the camel's back came with the death of my grandfather. He and I were really close, and he'd been in the hospital for a couple weeks, and she was just massively unsupportive, constantly asking when I could see to her needs. At one point, she harassed me to try to get me to Skype her, while I was running food to my mother, who hadn't left the hospital in days. Then when he died, I thought surely now she'll step up. Nope, just wanted to know if this meant I'd be free to come see her now, and just like that, it was over. Story 14. Used to have a hookup with a girl who was an absolute nymphomaniac. We'd see each other every couple of weeks to go on a date and have a hotel booked for after. And then eventually just stopped doing the dates and went straight to the hotel instead. We had both just got out of long-term relationships, and neither of us wanted anything serious. I could not believe my luck. She had a sort of rock chick aesthetic and used to dye her hair every couple of weeks. She'd do it the day before she was coming to see me to sort of surprise me with her new look. The bad part, however, was she used to buy the cheapest hair dyes, and there was always a hint of ammonia smell to her hair, especially when things got hotter. Anyway, the last time we hooked up, she'd tried to dye it this sort of purpley color, and it had gone completely wrong, came out an awful sludgy green, and was all dry and messy, almost matted. It also absolutely stunk of piss. She spent half the time while we were scratching her head because it was itching her, while I was getting wafted with litter tray smell. Looking back, I feel terrible for just calling it off after that, because she was actually a really nice girl, and it was clearly just that it had gone wrong. But it gave me such a negative physical reaction that I knew I could not smell that slight ammonia smell without being repulsed. Even now, when I get flashbacks to that night, whenever I clear my cat's litter out. Story 15. I miss the amount of gas I saved because I was WFH. I miss all the great food I was able to make because I had time to learn and experiment. I made the greatest hot lunches every single day. I miss all the time I had to spend with my animals. I miss being able to exercise for minutes at a time. At any point in my day, I was the healthiest and strongest I've ever been, considering I work an office job. I miss how people were more concerned with hygiene. I see that we are back to people sneezing in their hands and using public bathrooms and just walking out without even washing their hands. I miss being able to have a garden that I could tend to in short spurts throughout the day. My garden this year failed dismally. I miss being able to work on household projects that I could take my time with, and instead now have to rush to get things done. I miss being able to take walks outside randomly throughout the day since I'm not WFH anymore. I miss all the animals in nature. I had no idea that there were so many foxes in my area until the pandemic. I guess the lack of cars on the road gave them an added sense of security. I miss the amount of time I saved traveling for work, groceries, other shopping, since I did so much of it online back then. I miss not having to pay for haircuts. I miss how clean and fresh everything seemed each day with the lack of cars on the road. I really miss not having to use one day a week as a chore day for grocery shopping, laundry, house cleaning. Because during the pandemic, I was able to do all those things in small spurts throughout the week, and my weekends were literally spent doing whatever I felt like.